All right, guys, I'm going to jump right into this because I was thinking at the end of President Biden's presidency, a lot of people believe he had a lot of mental issues, right? A lot of people allege that he had Alzheimer's. And we're looking at President Trump today and what's truly going on in the world. Because I really want to talk about the absolute psychological exhaustion of being an American citizen right now. We're living in an era where you go to sleep stressed about the price of groceries and you wake up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. with World War III trending on your timeline because the president of these United States of America got into his feelings and decided to send out a tweet threatening to wipe out an entire civilization off the map. And I don't care if you lean left, right, or center. I don't care if you are conservative fiscally, but liberal socially. What we have right now, ladies and gentlemen, is a leader, supreme leader, who is more concerned with leading himself and feeding his own ego than leading the American people. He wants to act like he's playing some sort of game, saying he uses extreme rhetoric to keep foreign adversaries in line. So now you telling the world that you're just bluffing. Now you're telling the world that you're just a big bully. Because I don't know if you guys, I know this has been going around since this weekend of President Trump's remark on Truth Social. A whole civilization will die tonight. So he is literally threatening to kill and destroy an entire country. I don't care how you guys interpret it. That is the way that I interpret it. Never to be brought back again. That means nuclear warfare. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight, one of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. What? They said that President Joe Biden showed signs of Alzheimer's. Well, I'm thinking President Trump is showing signs of dementia. This is absolute evil, chaotic, and crazy, in my opinion. And there's people who supported Trump through all the crazy statements he's made when he was running for presidency, all the past comments that he made. Oh, he was just talking in a room like a bunch of, athletes when he was talking about he go up to beautiful women and grab their private parts. They surpassed all of that. They made excuses for all of that. And granted, there are people still making excuses for President Trump. They will not make these excuses for their own children, but they're making for President Trump. This is diabolical. He thinks we're playing some sort of game. It's almost like, he wasn't the smartest, most handsomest kid in school. And now he's just trying to bully the world. But what about the residual impact on the people who actually live here? What about all the American mothers and fathers whose sons and daughters are in the military, who will be in harm's way, whose heart is palpitating because they are terrified that boots are going to hit the ground in Iran because of a social media post? Now, I know some of you say, well, it hasn't reached that far yet. They're now in a 2-week negotiation that Iran has accepted to negotiate with, and the Strait of Hormuz is now open. Okay. But I can tell you this, you cannot run a superpower like a reality TV show. This is not The Apprentice. It's not just the left saying this. The right is fracturing over it as well. Even the conservative commentators, the ones who usually defend the administration at all costs and are looking at the camera and saying, can he just act like a normal human being? No, he cannot, because he ain't normal. He is not normal.
Is still closed. And President Trump this morning on Truth Social was not mincing words. I mean, truly, just taking it to the next level. Quote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran." Now, as you can imagine, that post did not go over well with the Iranians or with many Americans. I mean, I don't know about you, but I am sick of this shit. I'm sick of it. Can't he just behave like a normal human? I mean, honestly, like the president, 3D chess, shut up. Fucking shut up about that shit. You don't threaten to wipe out an entire civilization. We're talking about civilians just casually in a social media post. You know, like I am the first to try to understand Trump and his strategy and to not freak out over his weird social media posts and language that is loose and incendiary. Truly, I've lived with it for 10 plus years. I learned it the hard way when I was on the receiving end of it for 9 months. And truly, I think that was a gift to me in many ways because it helped me really come to understand what he does with his social media. But this is completely irresponsible and disgusting. This is wrong. It's wrong. He should not be doing it. I don't care that it's his negotiation tactic is to kill an entire country full of civilians, men, women, and children. An American president so that the Strait of Hormuz will be opened. It's just wrong. It's not hard to say it. It's not hard to recognize it. I wish he would stop doing this. Like, he can't negotiate without doing this. What does that say about him? What does that say about the position that our country is in right now in these negotiations? He's got to say this. He can't be a dignified, strong leader without threatening a bunch of war crimes.
Believe me, I'm no friend of Megyn Kelly because you guys already knew this because he's never, ever shown this before. Yes, he has. He's always shown that he's a petulant child. But here's my angle, ladies and gentlemen, and this is where we kind of cut through all the BS. Because while the president is causing chaos, look at what the opposition is doing. Oh, yeah, I go hard on the Democrats and I go hard on the Republicans. Because some people would think because I go hard on the Democrats that I'm Republican. I go hard on the Republicans, I'm a Democrat. I see it in my comment sections all the time. You guys are confused about Blacklogic. I'm not confused. I don't take either of these sides because they're both diabolically evil. And the only thing that we can hold them to is some of the policies that they may propose and pass. That's the only thing. We would like to believe that, oh, I'm Republican because I'm conservative and I believe in these things. Well, I'm a Democrat and I believe these progressive and liberal things. No, they're playing both of us like punks. Because when you look at the progressive, right, they're out here running the exact same grift they've been running for decades. And I want to show you one more clip from Megyn Kelly because J.D. Vance is not even a better second choice. When he came out on Turning Point USA, and I showed that before, he was talking about you do not have to apologize for being white. When have white people have ever apologized for being white? Maybe a couple liberals did, but majority of Dixiecrats, majority of the Democrats, majority of the Republicans never apologized for being white. Why would anyone apologize for being black? Why would anyone apologize for being white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever you are? You don't have to apologize for it. But that's the speech he decided to come out on Turning Point USA during the heightened time, you know, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated or murdered or killed or whatever happened. They still can't even match the guy they have in custody of the bullet of the gun. They don't even know. Now they have this whole conspiracy theory that Candace Owens is doing, and everybody is tuning in to watch that. I get it. It's interesting. But do people really care? I don't know. This is crazy.
Another problem with that Trump tweet, a whole civilization will die tonight. That's the kind of thing that will get raised at the primary debates with all of the Republican candidates. Do you stand by that? Did you think that was appropriate? Did President Trump handle himself well and represent the United States government well with that? I mean, I could come up with an A+ level hard fastball using just that phrase alone, just to embarrass everybody. And it will happen. So it's like, but I don't think Trump cares about that. I really don't think he cares about legacy building or making sure that the torch gets carried on. And that brings me to JD Vance. So JD Vance is over in Hungary. And by the way, the New York Times article that just hit on how we got into this thing points out that JD Vance was not there for the Benjamin Netanyahu presentation. He was overseas, sent by the president. He came back and was there the next day when we met Americans only. And the Times makes clear, discouraged the war. He believed if we were to do it, that we should do it with overwhelming force so it was over quickly. But it makes very clear in the most explicit terms yet that JD Vance was against this. And one of the points he raised was, it's going to blow apart your coalition. Now, clearly somebody close to the vice president spoke to the Times, because as this thing goes south, I think he's getting more open about his opposition. You know, he's in a very tight, tough spot because clearly he might run. He needs to be able to tell the base, I wasn't for it. But right now he needs to be able to tell his boss, I've got your back. It's impossible. So I'll get you to comment on that. But let me just play you this soundbite that he gave overseas that then led the White House to come out to say, no one's nuking anybody. SOT 5. This is today.
But we feel confident that we can get a response, whether it's positive or negative. We're going to get a response from the Iranians by 8 o'clock tonight. I hope they make the right response, because what we really want is we want a world where oil and gas is flowing freely, where people can afford to heat their homes and cool their homes, where people can afford to transport themselves to work. That's not going to happen if the Iranians are engaged in acts of economic terrorism. So they've got to know we've got tools in our toolkit that we so far haven't decided to use. The President of the United States can decide to use them, and he will decide to use them if the Iranians don't change their course of conduct.
Now, I personally think he probably meant some of the stuff that we reportedly used in Venezuela, like some of these devices that.
You know, we're not going to make excuses for these politicians. They're really spewing a lot of evil here, because on one hand, JD Vance is stating almost the exact same sentiments that President Trump is. They didn't say nukes exactly, but I want you guys to look at this. Now, in my military career, I know exactly what this means to me. Now, I can't interpret what he meant, but he said a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. That is destroying a whole country, in my opinion, from my perspective, with nuclear weapons. And then he states, I don't want this to happen, but it probably will happen. And people thought this was some sort of, this harmful rhetoric that will scare Iran. Well, the one thing that Iran doesn't understand is that this guy possibly will do it. America is the only country in the world that has ever dropped nuclear bombs on a country. And we dropped 2 of them. We dropped both of them on Japan. We dropped one on Hiroshima and we dropped one on Nagasaki. And for 30, 40, 50 years, people have been having all sorts of ailments, conditions, diseases. All things have been happening in those regions because radiation, not the background radiation, but the residual radiation from those nuclear bombs are still affecting people, probably even today. That was a very inhumane way about going about things, but America at the time thought they had no choice. So were we threatening? Was he alluding? I don't know, to dropping a nuclear bomb? Because the world needs oil. Them damn Rockefellers, boy, they made everything depend on oil. So when 25% of the world's oil supply couldn't get through the Strait of Hormuz and rising gas prices, right? Because don't forget, they came out and say that, the war is practically over. And then President Trump even stated that we control the Strait of Hormuz. How? How do we control the Strait of Hormuz if part of the 10-point peace plan that Iran is in control of the Strait of Hormuz? What are the regular American citizens? What are we missing here? I want you guys to look at this with me. Now, it states here, according to the state media, Iran, you guys can't see it. That's okay. According to the state media, Iran will only accept the war's conclusion once details are finalized in line with a 10-point peace plan reportedly submitted to the White House via Pakistan intermediaries. The list of 10 points published by Iranian state media, this is their 10-point plan. A number of conditions the U.S. has rejected in the past. The plan requires what? Lifting all primary and secondary sanctions on Iran. Continue Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. What did they say? Continue Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. Not start, but the continuance. Meaning that America, we never had control over the Strait of Hormuz. Then President Trump also stated that we manufacture, or I think we produce more oil than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined, which is a lie. Russia and Saudi Arabia combined produces more oil than America. So again, we kind of went through a lot of the claims that President Trump made, a week or 2 weeks ago when he gave his address to the war of Iran. He did his whole war address. And it just was filled with all of these lies and deflections and exaggerations. U.S. military withdrawal from the Middle East and end to attacks on Iran and its allies. That means Lebanon. Because right now, Israel is still trying to attack Lebanon because of Hezbollah, the terrorist group that resides there. The release of frozen Iranian assets. That means money. A UN Security Council resolutions making any deal binding. So if President Biden had Alzheimer's, that means President Trump has dementia. And some of you like, well, there's no difference, Blacklogic. Yeah, it is. It states here that dementia is an umbrella term for a range of symptoms involving cognitive decline, memory loss, confusion, while Alzheimer's is a specific degenerative brain disease that causes those symptoms. Now, if we look into a broader scope of dementia, we get this. Dementia, particularly behavioral, the behavior of dementia, variant frontal lobe dementia, can cause sudden anger, aggression, and evil or cruel behavior in seniors without significant initial memory loss. So his memory could be intact. But he's speaking very, very chaotic. Because you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys remember this, right? Where is it? Let me pop that one up. That's the wrong screen. Give me 1 second. I know you guys remember this. You guys remember this? This was on Easter. Tuesday would be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up into one in Iran. There would be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise to be Allah, President Donald J. Trump. Now, if someone is not losing their entire mind, he has just disrespected. Now, first and foremost, he threatened, an entire country twice. Then he has threatened, in my opinion, Muslims all around the world. President Trump reportedly and supposedly to be a Christian. So why is he saying praise be to Allah? I mean, is that disrespectful? Now, who's going to give me an excuse for that? Who's going to make an excuse for this? And who's going to make an excuse for this? Oh, see, what you don't understand, these are negotiation tactics. I know it comes off, it is very chaotic, and evil rhetoric, but these are just tactics, Blacklogic. He was never really going to go through with it. These people must be outside their mind. I believe there's a lot of people regretting their vote, but on the surface, they're not going to actually state that. They're not going to admit that they regret their vote. They're not going to admit that. But meanwhile, you have the Democrats out here. They're standing at podiums screaming, we need to invoke the 25th Amendment. We need to impeach him again. He is a deranged madman. Yeah, you got that right. But impeach him with the 25th Amendment? That's not going to happen. They just need to stop it with all this political theater. Stop lying to the American people. It's performative nonsense. You and I both know that the 25th Amendment requires that the vice president, and I guess you want J.D. Vance, you don't have to be apologized for being white anymore, and we'll go through with nuclear bombs. Okay, he didn't state that, but that's the way I interpret it. But you need the vice president and the cabinet to declare the president unfit. And this has never been successfully used to unseat a sitting president in American history. They have all these sections within the 25th Amendment, and the only one that has been used is Section 3, not Section 4. We're going to get into it, so you guys have a better understanding of the 25th Amendment and how they're actually using it, because they're not even using it the right way. Now, it states here that it confirms the vice president becomes president upon a president's death, resignation, or removal. It also allows the vice president and cabinet to declare the president unable to discharge duties. Has it been invoked before? Absolutely. Primarily for transferring power during planned medical procedures, Section 3, and filling vice presidential vacancies, Section 2. However, Section 4, which allows for the involuntary removal of a president, has never been used. In Section 3, temporarily, it's been used multiple times when these presidents had medical procedures. Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Joe Biden. It's a lot of very performative theater when it comes to both of these political parties. And this is why I don't think the American people should ever choose a side. You should lobby. You should have PACs, political action committees, where you fund whatever candidate so they can pass legislation that you want. That's about it. We either be a conservative or liberal, whatever it may be. But picking a side, are you going to fall on the sword of the man or the woman that you support? This is political theater by the Democrats. Just let the GOP kill themselves. That is what they're doing by letting President Trump go off the leash like he's always been, but he's even more tyrannical now than he's ever been before. Because again, they're self-imploding, but the Democrats, they're trying to sell you a dream that they know that they can't deliver. Just think about the sheer futility of this. You impeached the man twice already. You took him to court and convicted him on 34 felony accounts. You ran an entire campaign on democracy. You ran an entire campaign on how he was existential threat to democracy, and you still couldn't stop him from walking right back into the Oval Office. If all of the courts and all of the billions in campaign spending and all of the legal maneuvering couldn't stop him from getting reelected, what makes you think screaming about the 25th Amendment on a Tuesday afternoon is going to do anything? They are full of sound and fury, signifying absolutely nothing. This is what the Democrats do the most. They puff up their chest. They get on these podiums. They make a lot of these wow statements, and it's a bunch of hot air. It's word salad. And the question that I always come to, like, even though I kind of know, why do they do it? Because as long as they keep you panicked about the president's Twitter account, his Truth Social account, as long as they keep us terrified about a war in the Middle East, we won't look at our own bank accounts. We won't look at the fact that the economy isn't thriving the way either party promised. They promised trillions will flood into our communities. We are still waiting. We're not in a depression, but we are damn sure not seeing the prosperity we were sold. Where's all the prosperity that President Trump were talking about? Anybody seen that? So the 25th Amendment will not be invoked. He will serve until 2028, in my opinion. But the Democrats are going to use this daily chaos to fundraise billions of dollars from would-be voters of the death and destruction of the GOP and President Trump. You don't want this party back in power. I mean, if it was up to me, neither party would be in power because both of them lie, both of them crazy, both of them evil. Well, we got to choose the less of two evils, right, Blacklogic? No, you don't have to choose evil. Were you saying not to vote? I'm saying that there has to be another way. Now, granted, anyone that runs for a political office, more times than not, in order for them to win because of the financial backing, they're going to have to choose Republican or Democrat. And if you notice, a lot of these corporate entities, they fund the candidate they want to win. So that means they have massive marketing, massive advertising. And so we, the people, only really get about 4 candidates to choose from, even though when you look at the ballot of different people that are running, it's like 8 people on the GOP side and there's like 8 people on the Democratic side, but we only really get to see 2 from each. Because we already know what a lot of these political parties are going to do. They're going to point to the reckless tweets, the reckless videos, the reckless statements, the reckless Truth Social posts. They're going to point to the foreign policy disasters and come right back to us and say, you have to vote for us to save the world. You have to vote for us to save the world. And now that I'm thinking about the 10-point plan, it was something that in this 10-point plan, I want you guys to point out that I've actually made a video about, dealing with, the lies and deflections of this administration that we're currently in. It was one thing that pointed out to me. It stated that the release of frozen Iranian assets, right? And if you guys could remember the video I did of how he lied on President Obama, that Obama used, was it 200 million, 400 million? It was millions of dollars that Iran paid to America for weapons, and we never paid them the money back. But when Obama got into office, he paid them the money back. Iran stating that America, we still have their money. And they want their money back. And that they need to lift a lot of the sanctions and pay compensation to Iran. Where is it? Here we go. I want to make sure you guys see this. This is what Iran is stating. Payment of full compensation to Iran and release of all frozen Iranian assets. This is their 10-point peace plan. You guys recall what I was telling you guys? Listen in on this really quickly. And I know a lot of people is interested in this one. Obama gave Iran $1.7 billion in U.S. taxpayers' cash, again, in U.S. taxpayers' cash to buy their respect. And this is in regards to Iran, to buy Iran's respect. Let's listen in.
Is Iran nuclear deal a disaster? Obama gave them $1.7 billion in cash, green cash. Took it out of banks from Virginia, D.C., and Maryland. All the cash they had, flew it by airplanes in an attempt to buy their respect and loyalty, but it didn't work. They laughed at our president and went on with their mission to have a nuclear bomb. His Iran deal would have led to a colossal arsenal of massive nuclear weapons for Iran. And they would have had them years ago, and they would have used them. Would have been a different world. There would have been no Middle East and no Israel right now, in my opinion, the opinion of a lot of great experts, had I not terminated that terrible deal. And I was so honored to do it. I was so proud to do it. It was so bad right from the beginning. Essentially, I did what no other president was willing to do. They made mistakes, and I am correcting them.
Okay, so you heard it from the president mouth himself. So Gemini stated that this claim that Obama gave Iran 1.7 billion, okay, in taxpayer money, what was said, President Obama gave Iran 1.7 billion in green cash taken out of banks from Virginia, D.C., and Maryland in an attempt to buy their respect and loyalty. Gemini states that this severely mischaracterizes the nature of the payment. The 1.7 billion was not U.S. taxpayer money being handed out as a bribe. It was the legal, listen, it was the legal settlement of a decades-old international arbitration claim. Before the 1979 revolution, Iran had paid the U.S. $400 million for military equipment that was never delivered. Now, this is a side note here. This is what and this is exactly what I was referring to when it came to this particular video, because now Iran is still asking for the remaining of their money in the 10-point peace plan. And it seems as though that America is going to agree to it. So again, on one hand, you have the president go live to the world and basically lie on another president about the money that we owe to a country because they gave us $400 million for weapons that we never delivered. And so President Obama returned their money, but there's still other monies that we owe Iran. And we stated that we control the Strait of Hormuz, and we do not control the Strait of Hormuz because Iran stating that we control the Strait of Hormuz. And then President Trump basically stated that they control the Strait of Hormuz. What did he say? Let me pop it up again. He says, open the effing strait, you crazy bastards. So if America is in control of the Strait of Hormuz, why are we asking another country to open it up? Then we're trying to destroy entire civilizations, are we not? But you know what's going to happen. You guys know what's going to happen. Because if we're not careful, there's going to be a lot of gatekeepers all throughout America. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, they're all going to come out. And they're going to help them deliver votes for free all over again with zero tangibles attached. We have to really stop falling for the outrage bait. Stop letting the uniparty run our blood pressure up over things that have no intention of fixing. They're going to use this war. They're going to use these truth social posts and fearmonger Black people, especially Black people, to vote for Democrats once again. Oh, you saying we should vote for those crazy Republicans? No. No. If neither of these two parties are going to offer tangibles, there has to be another way. There has to be another candidate. There has to be another solution. We really need to disengage from the national political theater that we cannot control and double down on the local politics that we can control. Because we understand that local and state has a more direct impact on our lives than federal. But they're going to use the federal, the acts of President Trump and his administration to have us to put the Democrats back in power. Should they be back in power? If a worthy enough candidate comes about, absolutely. But what if a worthy enough candidate comes out of the Republican Party? Let's just take, for instance, because James Tellerico beat out Jasmine Crockett, right? Let's say he runs for president. Let's say Gavin Newsom runs for president. Have you guys been looking at some of the policies that Gavin Newsom have proposed? That he's going to give free healthcare, universal healthcare to all people, regardless of their immigration status. So what is that telling you? That they're planning for another massive evasion of people that are legally in the country. If you think that grocery prices are up, if you think that your city, your town, your state is crowded, traffic, I mean, it's going to be chaotic because everybody's going to flock to America. You're giving out free healthcare, I'm coming. You're funding luxury apartments, I'm coming. Fast track to citizenship, I'm coming. So we have to look at this more locally than we do federally, because this is how they do the bait and switch. They show us the big picture, all the while we should be focused on smaller pictures that affect us more directly. Making our community economically insulated. We need adults in the room. If they won't put them in Washington, because they have not, neither side. There's a lot of dupes on the Republican Party and a lot of dupes in the Democratic Party. We have to put them in our neighborhoods, though, because the reality of the 25th Amendment and in the regards what they're referring to, Section 4, that really allows the vice president and a majority of the cabinet to declare a president unable to discharge the powers of the office. Because if the president disputes this, it requires 2/3 vote in both the House of Congress to remove him. And what about the public outrest? Because there's still people on the MAGA train. And given the bipartisan divide, this is statistically and politically impossible, and they know it. They just know that the American people are not too familiar with politics, so they play us the fool. So this is purely performative fundraising tactics. We're going to give, once again, all our money to the politicians who are going to do nothing. Because if you look at the 2024 election conviction, despite President Trump facing 34 felonies and multiple impeachments, the U.S. Constitution does not prohibit a convicted felon from running for or serving as president, rendering the Democratic legal strategy leading up to the election a massive failure in terms of preventing his return to office. Now, despite political claims of, booming economies from both administrations, data from the Federal Reserve shows that the wealth inequality has continued to widen with Black Americans, disproportionately impacted by inflation and stagnant wages in the post-pandemic era. So again, our condition has not gotten any better. But these are a lot of the political stories that they will woo and woe us with. Because that's what the Democrats have been doing ever since the 1960s. They have been scaring the living daylights out of Black Americans. And they've been doing it on a federal level. Why do you think that so many, I won't say that it was a vast majority, but it was a higher percentage of Black Americans who did not vote and who actually voted for the GOP last term? Was it Kamala Harris? Was it Joe Biden? Was it the way that they handled the politics? Joe Biden, do not forget, stated that he was going to run for another term, knowing that from what we saw visually, he was in a physical and mental cognitive decline. And then late in the running, Kamala Harris started to run. And nobody really wanted Kamala Harris to run except for her sorority, her school, a couple of people on her team. But the American people wanted a different choice. on both sides. They wanted someone, I guess, sensible. But that's not what we're receiving. This is total chaos. Again, you have people in his base going against him, saying the most egregious and heinous things. Then there's people who are going to defend this, no matter what he stated on Easter, no matter that he threatened to wipe out an entire civilization, an entire group of people. How are you to defend this? Well, you know what? Where's the PBD podcast at? Where's Valuetainment at? What's his name? Patrick Davis, whatever his name is. He's Iranian. He's from Iran. Is he going to go along with this like he's always had with President Trump? I'm just asking questions because I don't know how you defend this. In this day and age, how do you defend this? That's why you hear a lot of these European countries, they're not even trying to be involved with it. Spain came out and said, nope, you cannot use our military bases. We're not even getting involved in this. And then you have people come out to defend the Trump administration, saying how these are allies if they're not going to help us out. We started the war with Israel. We didn't speak to NATO. We didn't speak to the European Union. We didn't speak to all these other countries that we are asking for assistance and help and to use some of their resources and military bases. We didn't talk to them. We just did whatever we wanted to do. And now Iran, with their meager military missiles and drones, is showing how a asymmetric war can really be fought and hurt a big juggernaut like these United States of America. And believe me, there are, hundreds of generals, hundreds of colonels and captains who are super intelligent. There are thousands of sergeant majors and thousands of first sergeants who are super intelligent in military tactics and warfare. And they would have told President Trump, don't do this. Don't say this. If you see where Iran is positioned in, the distance between the Strait of Hormuz and where Iran missile silos are, and the ones we can't even see, they will hold the world hostage if we attacked. If anything, we need to tell Israel to back down. But no, we didn't do that. It's kind of like when I grew up in Washington, D.C., and you'll go through a neighborhood that you probably wasn't familiar with, and guys just be, chilling on a porch, chilling on the steps in front of a building or something like that, and they just spark up a conversation with you, all just to whip your ass because they don't know who you are. They just want to jump you. So one guy usually starts it, and then the rest of the guys end up either chasing you or trying to beat you up. That's what we did. Israel was like, no, we don't like Iran, even though America last year in 2025 stated that we bombed their so-called enrichment sites that they were trying to build nuclear weapons. So there's no more nuclear threat from Iran. But Israel said, man, you know what? I think they still got nukes. I think they still got nukes. Oh, they do? Yeah, we're going to go ahead and bomb them. America like, okay, we're going to bomb them too. Oh, my God. You guys have a good one.